Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I am alone today doing a rapid recharge. So this means it's going to be something that we do on a monthly basis probably. And it's just something where I'm going to share a little bit of some of my knowledge and information, and it'll be a little bit quicker, and hopefully you'll be able to, if you want to, you can come on air. And so the easiest way to do that is to go under the attendees tab over, I think over here somewhere. I think it's on your right-hand side. And you can actually request, there's like a green button, and you can request to be on air. The only thing is that you're gonna need your earbuds, and then it's gonna ask, hey, can we use your, can Google use your microphone and your camera from your computer and stuff like that. So this will kind of be able to where people could ask questions or do something. So we're going to do a little different, a little bit more community stuff coming in, and hopefully you guys will get a little bit more FaceTime too if you want. So again, if you want to come in, you're welcome to just push that little request and I will pop you on. All you do, you just have to have earbuds. So we're going to talk about pricing today, and I'm going to do my best to flip back and forth and see if I have any requests. So I have to flip. So it's good to see everybody. Hey, Jennifer, Rashina, Jason. Bunch of other people are in here, but they just haven't said hey. So please do say hey over in the chat. That way we know you're here, and you get to see how messy the rest of my office is today. So hey, Kim, good to see y'all. So I'm sure my mom is not happy that my office is so messy. See, I usually sit where you can't see it. But let's get on to pricing. So one of the things where pricing is concerned that's really important is to remember is your location. So when I moved from Denver to Richmond, Virginia, my price changed a bit. When I moved from Richmond to here, my price changed. It's also where you are, what's going on around you, your expertise and your experience doesn't necessarily have to go with age. So everybody's saying, hey, everybody. I waved like you could see me. That's funny, Jennifer. Hey, Maxine. Hey, Joseph. All right, and William. Hey, always. My friend William, and Verdui is here too. Awesome. Okay, and Amy, War Eagle. Okay, so think about your expertise and where your experience is. So you may be 19. I think of Zachary Smith, and he's amazing hand letterer. And at 19, yes, Jason, I did the big one. At 19, he was doing these really big lettering projects, and he had expertise. He maybe had, he did have a few years of experience because he had worked for his dad, who was a sign painter and designer. So he had done some things that most 19-year-olds wouldn't have. So you have to think about that. But me, as I've been a designer for 20 years, so you think, oh, well, you would be able to charge more for a hand lettering thing because you've been around, and that's not always the case. So you want to think about where your expertise lies and how many hours you've spent working on that project. So sometimes when you're pricing things, if you're a freelancer or if you have your own company and you have other people that work with you, you have to think about all those little things. Like I don't charge for a meeting as much as I charge for my design work, and I don't charge as much for doing research on something as I charge for design work or Photoshop stuff, because sometimes I'll get that out and I'll send that out to somebody else, to a freelancer or a contractor, and they don't charge me as much, and so I'm able to kind of work it that way. But again, location is important. I was definitely charging less as I went east and south, but that's not always the case. A bigger city is going to be the market's going to be more. So I'll kind of give you a behind the scenes thing. Jason says like $7.50 an hour. I think that would be like lower than minimum wage, I think. But you spent time building your experience, building your knowledge base, whether that was reading, then you had to go to the library and you spent time reading books, or you bought the books, or you spent time on an interview, not an interview, I'm reading Hannah's thing. Okay. You spent time in school learning all this stuff. So all that has to come into what you're charging. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see students do. They devalue their work, and I actually see a lot of professional designers doing the same thing. So this doesn't seem to be something that just people, they graduate and they get, and or they spend 10 years in design. I think a lot of times they still devalue your products, what you do. So also you got to think about where the market is. What if the market is flooded? So if you use a site like Elance, or one of those where you can kind of try to get work from a site, you're competing with people who are in other countries that $10 goes a lot farther than what it would go here. So, and it's also about, knowing the market. And I don't necessarily recommend sites like Elance, but I know people need to get started, so that may be a good place to get started. Don't want to bash anybody, but that's not where I would tell people to go. So I think a place like the Creative Group, and I get no money from them, but they have a better kind of, they also get work for people, but you're going to be able to tell them a rate, and they're going to work with you on getting a rate that's a little bit more acceptable than just the cheapest, right? Which kind of is what Elance does. So think about maybe not going where the market's always flooded, and think about figuring out where your quality is and where you can give your quality. And I've been doing these I've launched a course called Finding Your Superpower, and I've been reading people's submissions, and I really do somebody said that they wanted to work in user experience, and I'm like, oh, well, you already are working in user experience, and that to me is you're overlooking something that you're already doing. And you probably are more of an expert than you think. Yeah, and Jason's saying like Fiverr, Elance, everything, people just want it the cheapest. So you probably, quality isn't going to be, and you probably don't want a client like that that's just wanting something for $5. So I want you to be able to prove your position, prove your superpower. So say you do really, Jeremy's going through it, and he said he wanted to do user experience, and he said that, I said, but Jeremy, you have more user experience than you think, because of some of the ways he answered his questions and other things. But to me, he was overlooking that. So what are you overlooking that maybe you discount? And I think probably a lot of you are discounting maybe not, maybe I just think people tend to be very humble, which is great. Don't want anybody being really pompous, but there is a limit to you have to, being too humble isn't good either. So there is a fine line, and I think most people are on the wrong side of the humble line. They need to be humble, but there needs to be confidence. So your cost. So you also have to take into account your cost, how much you are going to be charging for something. And then you have to think about how many hours you're willing to spend doing that thing. Oh, you can't hear. Maybe refresh. Oh, maybe I may hit refresh for Alicia. Because if she can't hear me saying that. I agree. Amy says that sites like Fiverr and Elance devalue the profession, and I completely agree. People aren't going there for quality, and they think what happens is it makes it like, well, can't you just do that? Can't you just whip that out? And it takes a while, and I think people think that we really enjoy what we do, which we do, but I think that it's not like making toast. It doesn't just come out of us. And I was sitting at lunch with a friend, and he said, yeah, you know, I kind of just whipped up this logo for this guy. And I said, is this what you wanted? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, how much am I going to have to pay for that? He said, you're going to pay full price. And he said, well, why? You just whipped that up in like 10 minutes. And he said, because it took me 20 years to come up with this. Because it took me 20 years to get to the point where I could listen to what you're saying and be able to execute a little sketch. You still have to do the stuff in the computer, but there is that part. And Jason's talking about, is there a social anxiety upcharge? You know, you can upcharge for difficult clients. You don't say that necessarily, but there can be a part of your fee, you know, that you can build into it if you have to walk people through a lot of things, or you have to do something like that. I think they definitely don't think it's work. And that's a huge problem. So, all right, just to remind everybody, you can also ask to get on screen, and then you can share in the conversation if you want. So when you're starting out, or if you're working as a designer and now you kind of want to start building a freelance career, what I suggest you do is, you know, take a point to find a nonprofit that you really believe in and tell them you're willing to do this number of hours of work for them. And then I always give those people an invoice so that they know how much they would have been charged, or say, hey, I'll do this series for you because I believe in what you're doing. I think giving away something is really important. I know that Seth Godin talks about this, and I do believe it's a really easy way for you to get your foot in the door. 10 minutes because I've been doing it for 50. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I'm trying to read as we go. That annoying client fee. We'll have to get a word for that. I think that would be good. All right. So if you do something for free, I've had great things come out of that. It also gives you the ability to explore. I do still make a contract, and so that they are clear that they don't have creative ability to go back and nitpick like your other clients do because they're paying for it. So one thing that's really important when you're doing your pricing is to have a contract. And I am going to put an example of a contract in underneath this on rechargingyou.com. So and they're talking about the Paula Scheer interview where she did, I think, the Citibank on the PITS fee. Amy Collins. Oh, that's a good one, Amy. I like that one. All right. So when you're pricing, you want to make sure your contract is really tight, and you need to make sure that you have everything taken care of. So you want to make sure that you're telling them exactly what they're getting and in what time frame. And then you also have to tell them what time frame you're expecting things back. So if you're giving them something, then expect it back in a certain time. If you don't give them a time frame and they don't give you a time frame, then you're just kind of working here and there. You're going to fit them in, or you're whatever. It's really important to do that, and I've had that example this morning. So I'm going to do better about giving written time slots for each of my clients so that nobody feels like they're discounted or that I didn't meet their deadline. I'm going to give you a couple other tidbits to do as well. So with your contract, you're covering what that covers. So you're going to do a logo for them. Well, how many versions are you going to supply them with? And then once they get the logo, are you going to create a standards manual for it? And I would assume that you're going to make a standards manual that's would cost something else for them. You know, it takes a lot of time to do something like that. So one of the things a lot of students ask me, oh, what should I charge for a logo? And I said, well, you know, think about how big the company is, but I think minimum $250. And so there will probably be some professional designers that maybe still feel bad about charging $250 for a logo. And I'm telling students to own, that's the minimum. So recently I had somebody offer to work on something. They had done a design. And so I said I would pay for it. Hadn't asked for it, but they did something and it was specifically for me, and I thought it was great. And so he said, I said, well, just tell me what you would, I don't want to be insulting. He's in a different market, a much bigger city. And so he said, oh, okay, well, it would be $1,500. And to me, that was really huge for something that I wasn't going to be using as a logo. And I thought, man, I need to up my rates, because I was doing a logo for between $750 and $1,200. Depending on how long and how many changes, how many revisions, all those things are included in my contract. If it's something only gets 2 revisions, then it's 2 revisions. If they need more than 2 revisions, it's done at so many dollars per hour. What I use to find my rate is an app. I think it's a $5, $7 app called My Price. You actually put everything into the computer or your device. You put how much your mortgage is, if you're renting a space, if you're using a space in your home. I mean, everything from loans you have, debt you have, to what you need to do if you have another job, if this is a full-time job, everything. And it tells you what your rate should be. And I really like that, because it helps me to get a number that isn't just arbitrary. And when I started from Richmond, when I moved down here 13 years ago, I think my rate was like $45 an hour, which was pretty low. But it was like when I was in Denver, 3 years prior, it was, I don't know, $60 an hour. So I was really coming down in price because I felt like the market wasn't, people were turning away. I hadn't proved myself. So I think it's really important. Oh, and Amy shared a standard AIGA agreement. I'm going to share mine too. And my dad's an attorney, so I always have him look over mine. So it gives you a little bit. I mean, I don't care if you copy it word for word, but I think the AIGA standard is really good. So Jason's saying there's the none or then use school maybe, or I don't know. All right, so when you're doing your contract, you have everything written down. You have how many revisions, how many versions you're going to supply, and then you need to keep to that. There are overage fees. So I do an overage for each line. If I'm doing a lot of work for them, I'll have option A, option B, option C, and they may be 3 completely different things. It may be A is, the full stationery set, and B is just the business card. And I give them options, but then there is, you have to start charging an overage fee if they go beyond the number of revisions, because again, I'm not necessarily doing it by the hour. The new school, sorry, I don't know. Clearly I'm not good at reading when it's all together. Roseanne says my price is $1.99. So I guess it's gone down, but it's a really good little app to figure out what your rates are, I think. So then you think about rush fees. And if those are not part of your contract or your quote, people need to know, like, what is considered a rush? And if I've waited, like, I also have what my expectations are of my client. So I say, if I get something back to you, I expect a response within 36 hours. And, maybe you want to do 2 days or something, but I do 36 hours, 48 hours, something like that, because I want them to understand that I'm doing other things, but I've planned to be able to meet the deadline that I set that is included. If they wait until the day before they need it, there is no way we're going to be able to get it done at the price that I said I would give it to them for. And then you also have to be very clear what you're giving them, especially if you're talking about a new company or a new business owner. They might not realize that you're just doing the design and you're not going to set up the file for the printer or order it or pay for the printing. They think you're doing everything, and you're not Kinko's. So, maybe you have a reseller agreement with someone and maybe you forward that over to them. Well, that's how you add value. All right, so Amy says late fees for overdue invoices. To me, I say they're due upon request. Sometimes with some clients, it's 30 days, and I try to do at least 15 days. But sometimes with some people, I get a deposit. So it also gives them some incentive that they have paid something in that they are not going to get back, that you have to give me something, and you're not going to get this back if you don't like what I did. This is the deposit. And before I will get started, I have to have the deposit to start. And if you're not doing that, if you feel bad, I have a reason I think you feel bad for asking for things like this. And I think it's confidence. I think it has to do with you feel like, well, they're not using a real firm downtown or something because they're using you, but you are a real firm, and that's one of your problems. Like, that's a mental thing that you have to start thinking of yourself. Like, and I'm going to read docs because I'm a slow reader. So I agree with you on overages. My projects include 2 proof and revisions. After the second revisions are made and show things, move into an hourly rate. I'm completely with that, Doc. I do that exactly, and I absolutely make them give me a deposit. If it's a long-time client I've had for 10 years, then I may have, if they're doing a bunch of things, they may just do kind of a lump sum deposit. But I do like to just stick to that. Like, hey, I need that before I can keep going forward. The late fees. We'll talk about that. So you could do 20%. I use FreshBooks, which I love. I think it's terrific. And it makes the invoicing part a lot easier for me. I don't know what you guys are using. I used to just have to create invoices on my own, but I don't know. I would love to know what you guys are using, but it's easy for you to do a late fee. So to add that in, Chelsea says she just battles with being nice, or too nice, I guess. So I think being too nice has to do, again, with some of that has to do with confidence. I'm right there with you, Chelsea. I battle with being too nice. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that I've done. So I was at lunch today, or in line, and there were these 3 ladies in front of me. And one lady didn't know what she wanted. Clearly, she didn't want to go to this place for lunch, but the other 2 people did. And so they went on up and ordered, and she was like, you can go in front of me. So I did. I went in front of her, and then I just was taking all this in. And I was thinking about how sometimes, so they were like, hey, Judy, is it, kept asking the lady that was behind me, like, are we eating here, or are we taking it to go? And I think for me, she's clearly the leader. She's the one that makes the plan. She's the one that, that they're looking to make sure that she's happy. She's the boss, whatever. Or is she the person that they're always trying to, she's the most volatile of all of them, and they're just walking on eggshells to make sure she's okay. So I think I'm nice, William. Maybe not always nice to you, but so think about if that person that you're having to be nice to is because they're volatile and you're always trying to keep peace, and you're keeping them pacified, or do they treat you like another business person and they treat you with respect? Because if they don't, then maybe that's time to let them go. I think there's a difference between a leader and then somebody who's volatile, or that somebody who you're having to pacify. And if they're treating you with respect, then they will pay you on time. And if they don't tell you, then you need to say, hey, is there a problem? Do you need to pay in increments, or, process billing? I will do projects like that. Then that way, or progress billing. That way they don't have to pay everything in a lump sum. They pay a deposit and then the lump sum. They might not like that. So you want to make sure that you're paying, you break it up for them. Talk to them ahead of time. If they want to break it out. I had a client when I was in Colorado. It was a friend, and I think we all kind of go through this. She was like, I'll pay you $25 a month. And I'm like, okay, for a logo. I'm like, man, we're going to be doing this for 30 years. Not really, but I was thinking that was really that was a really small amount. And so she'd missed like 3 payments of $25 a month. And I said, you know what? where friends are concerned, you have to decide, and family, you have to decide, hey, you know what? This is a gift. I gave it to you as a gift. Just go, let it go. But I do think having a contract and having them sign something that you're making the terms, not they're making the terms, is really important. I will definitely look at this thing that Doc just put up. If I'm working, Roseanne has a question. If I'm working with a new client, it is half to start and then half on delivery. For a long-term project, there are steps in the contract. And I agree, you have to have something. But the reason I think that people sometimes we're too nice, Chelsea, is because we allow people, we want the money, we need the money, we're trying to pay the bills, or we're trying to keep the lights on or whatever. And you're trying to make sure that people are happy. And I think customer service is huge, but I don't think it means that they're running over you. So I think people get used to, we as designers get used to people telling us what something is worth and what something will cost. So I also think new businesses are also used to that. So they're like, oh, now you always have to have a price of something, or they're going to try to get you down to something lower. So don't ever ask them what they want to pay. What you want to say is, this is my fee. This is what it costs to do this, and be prepared to walk away. The higher your price, hopefully it goes with your abilities. And again, those things are all part of how much you've been doing, what kind of work you've been doing. If it's in your area, that's an area of expertise, you can probably charge more. But you have to set the price, and that comes with confidence. And if you just start somewhere, that's why I always tell students just to tell them $250, just start somewhere. So if you feel like the price is too low, you probably are not going to be putting your best work in. And then that's not going to be a great client for you, or whatever. It's not going to be a great relationship. But what I want you to remember is, when you're creating that, you don't go to get your oil changed and be like, well, I know you say it costs $25, but I'm only going to pay you $15. Nobody does that. So give them examples of how this works in the real world. A logo, tell them how important this is. Express to them, there are other places. You can go other places, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to give you as value, what I bring to the table. And if you can't express to them your value, then I think that's part of your problem. And you do have to be able to have them walk away. So usually a logo takes me 10 to 15 to 20 hours, hopefully 10 to 15. That's kind of what I budget for. But sometimes they take longer. And this is a lot of time. Sometimes it takes 40 hours, depending on what the client's needs are. But anyway, so if I have a client, I had a client last December said, oh, well, I've called around a couple places, and this was a client in Texas. I had not met them. They had got my name from somebody, and they said, oh, well, we budgeted for this amount. And I said, they were like a Christian based, and I love Jesus, so I was going to give them my friends and family discount, nonprofit discount. And they said, oh, well, that's too high. I said, well, okay, well, I'm happy to give you some other names of people, but that's the lowest I'm going to do it for. Because even though I believed in their cause, I wasn't going to take on that project because they weren't going to value what I was worth. So again, when I do something for a friend, a family member, or a nonprofit, and I'm just giving it away, or even if I'm just giving them a reduced rate, there's a section in FreshBooks notes, and I always say special design rate, and then I write what it is, and then I say my design rate, the regular design rate, because I want them to know that they're getting something. And in a quote, if I'm giving somebody a deal, I'll write their rate and then what the regular rate would be. Because what I found is when you don't do that, they don't value it at all. They definitely don't value something that would take other people a lot longer because of your experience and expertise. Okay, so I I always like to ask them what their budget is. That might be one of my, first 10 questions. That way I know if I'm a good fit for them or not. And that may be something you do over the phone if you're just trying to kind of get started. But think about how long something's going to take. And what I found with having an intern this summer is that you need to, with your employees, you also need to ask that. If you're an employee, you need to ask that question to your boss. And if you're the boss, you need to make sure you're telling your employees how much how much we budgeted, how much time we budgeted for this particular job. Because what you don't want is to have somebody say, "Oh, I worked a lot on this, and what you're charging is like $50," and they ended up spending 6 hours on it, which now you're paying them to do. You're paying them to do this other guy's job. You're never going to break even. So if you say, "Hey, I only am budgeting for you to spend an hour doing this one thing, so please don't go over that hour." If you go over that hour, then that's all on you. And I don't know if this is what Maxine's talking about. That's absolutely right. So if you don't tell them it was a special rate, they'll say, oh, she did that logo for me for $750. And then they're like, sweet. And then they tell the plumber down the street, and he's like, sweet, I can do that. And then, you know what? It's not. And a lot of times people will want to barter or trade. And I have done that, but it always ends up being a lot more work than I think if I just had paid them and then they would pay me. So I definitely think either way, you write a contract out, you tell them what it's worth, and then they're working off your bill if you're bartering, or you're working off their bill if you did a barter. So, okay. I have all these little pieces of paper, things I wanted to make sure I cover. So how do you make it worth their price? What's the added value you're giving them? So that's kind of like the walk away. I'm happy to do this. Here's what I can offer. You do need something. Hey, Brittany, good to have you. You want to have something kind of planned that you have thought about yourself and about what your goals are and who you are and what your why is and what's important. You kind of need to have that ready, not necessarily to read word for word, but you need to have said it and practiced it over and over so that you're able to communicate your value with a particular client's problem. I don't ever think that that's something you can overlook. I think you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you're really good at and what your superpower is. So never give excuses. That's one of my things. I think Chelsea probably is similar. I just, if they think I've done something wrong, I just apologize. And I try not to share anything personal. I just apologize. Even though maybe I don't really think that it's all my fault. I've had clients like that, and I've ended up letting them go because it isn't a good relationship for me because I end up bottling stuff up. So just have a talk with them. If you can't express it, you might not want to express it right that minute, but you want to probably share that with them at a later time, because a lot of times you will have gone over and over to try to help them, and your budget said you were going to be there for an hour and you ended up staying for 2.5 hours. So you want to, and you didn't charge them for that, but you don't bring that up to them. But what happens is that they then were eating into somebody else's time. And so then you either have to not sleep or get, more time in the day. And if you figured that out, please email me, call me, whatever, because I'd like to know how to do that. And I also try to not ever mention that I have other clients. And the reason is, they don't need to hear me complaining or talking about something else. I want them to feel like they're number one, and I want them to feel like I am on their team. And I think when you start bringing up that you're doing these other things, I think that that's a problem of when that comes up. They start not feeling like you're part of their team. All right, so Jennifer says, is there any resource of line item, so to speak, of all the elements within the design process that I may not be remembering as part of the process that adds value? Wow. Everybody's different. And what I found in just reading over some people's answers from my course, the Finding Your Superpower, is that people are discounting a lot of just regular things that they go through. So Derek Sievers, he had a company called CD Baby. He wrote about this in his book, Anything You Want, which is another great resource, a great little book. It's really short. You want to make sure that you're expressing in your why. Like, I think it's really important that I spend time with my clients and that they feel like I'm on their team. I'm part of their team. So it's really, to me, that's one of my whys, because I want their dreams to come true. But one thing I have to do is I have to set better deadlines and better reality. And I know I don't do this because my husband tells me, I say, oh, I'm going to be home at 5 and I'm home at 7. And he's like, you're really bad at judging time. And so I know I am. And so I need to be better at this. This is something I'm working on. And there may be something that you're working on too. But Jennifer, I bet there's things that you do that you discount that are really, it could be soft skills too, like the user experience stuff. Oh, you know, I found this and this doesn't work really well, and this is why. Like, you're really good at analyzing, or maybe you're really good at reading people. So then that means you're really good at sitting down and being like an account rep, and you're good at communicating what's the client wants to what the designer is trying to do, or they're trying to say something to their audience, and you're good at making that the headlines and writing the copy. Those are all things that aren't necessarily part of the design process, but those are things that make you, and they're really specific as a package with all the things that come together. And Derek Sievers says that, oh, he thought all these other people were doing all these really cool things, and he thought everything he was doing, everybody had those skills. And I think most of us think that. Most of us discount those superpowers. So make time for you to sleep. Make time for you. Make sure you are judging and valuing your time and giving yourself time, so that you're not just work, so that you're giving yourself time, some downtime. So Jennifer says, that's exactly what I mean. Like, what are those things called to be able to put down, or to use the right terms to educate them? I don't know. We'll have to maybe email me, Jennifer, and we'll try to figure out. Doc says the discounted rate is important for clients to see, but dangerous to keep putting it out in the wild, because the word travels. Yeah, it does. There is a rate. You have a rate, and it is either a project rate or a rate based off of your time, hourly or project. So I had a couple polls. I don't know if they're going to pop in or not. Maybe not. I can't see them now. So advice on the friend pricing. Ooh, it's really fast. Is it better to do it as a gift for free and clear, than to take a small price to do the work, i.e. You love the cause? So Doc, I really believe that's where you are in your career. If you're in the beginning and you're just trying to get started in freelance, I think you should do it free and clear. Unless it's just really a lot of work, then I would do part of it free and clear, and then say, here's the rest of it. I'll do the rest of it, for this fee. I can't do everything. So where websites are concerned, or logos or something, like they'll want something else and then something else, and it just snowballs. So I think it's really important. So let me read the next one. When giving discount, the client becomes resentful. They don't see progress as fast as they like. You become resentful after seeing all the time, and you're not able to bill. Yeah, so you've got to, so if it's this tiny little thing that's never going to go anywhere, you might, and you think that it's going, I still give them how many revisions it's going to be. And then after that, it's going to cost something. Because I really think that they start to value what you're doing for them. So Chelsea says she's done a logo for an 8-year-old starting a bakery, $80. You know, again, ask them what their budget is. And if they're not budgeting, it's just a good learning experience for anybody that's an entrepreneur that's starting a business. There's a lot of things that go into it. And then you could start, you know, I give away that my 2-hour consult. I feel like it's like a patient intake patient meeting or something, because we really get into a lot of questions about them, and we see if we want to work together and if the project's interesting to me, or if I feel like it's a better fit for somebody else. But I really think Amy commented to Jennifer about project management. I really think when you're sitting down with an 8-year-old, or when you're sitting down with a 60-year-old or 70-year-old, 80-year-old, whatever, if they haven't started a business or run a business, then they probably, project management's huge. They don't realize all the stuff that goes into it. And an 8-year-old for sure probably won't know that stuff. So you got to help them out, and you got to sit them down and tell them what things cost. And because again, we may really like what we do, but we also have to pay the same bills they pay: the power, the water, the education bills. For me, when students say, well, I feel bad charging, this, you just have to say, well, do you think when you fill up for gas, they feel bad that you have to fill up your car? Or the power company feels bad, when they're charging you? No, you're using that, and it's a real service. Yes, so Doc says Dutch treat a first date client meeting. Sometimes I'll pay for their meal, or pay for their whatever they're drinking, but it's normally I'm not billing them for my hours. Now, some people will have that meeting, and then it'll be part of their research fee, that they kind of have that part into it. I always think it's really important to give away something for free, whether it's a piece of advice, whether it's a name of somebody else. When I lived in Colorado, there was a guy, and he wanted a finder's fee. And I don't know, this like really put me off funny. I didn't like that at all. So I was like, I don't want the job then, because to me, it was really off-putting that he was going to do that. And I understand people do that all the time. Like, you may use a printer, and you're going to mark it up. You're going to take a little bit of you're going to pay for it, and then you're going to mark something up. But I don't announce that to somebody. So I just give away that stuff. Maybe that's something else that I do that is nice that's something I do nice for my clients. All right, so I'm trying to Dutch treat. Yes, it's tax deductible for sure. Also consultation for a line item, Amy says. Yes, you could have a consultation for a line item. Maxine says, or does the school feel bad charging you? Yeah, they don't feel bad charging you, I promise. Part of the designer is educating your clients on the process, and I totally agree. And that's where, again, I think AIGA is really good at this, and being part of a community. So ask other people. I mean, when the guy that did that mark for me said it was $1,500, and I was like, wow, I can't pay that, and I'm not going to use it as my mark, but would you take this amount? And so he said, yeah, I'll take that. So sometimes it's just about finding what things are, but especially when you've done something and you did something for someone, but they didn't ask you to do it. AIGA doesn't really look kindly on that, and I don't think it's good for our profession is to do comp work, meaning you're going to do the work before the clients, they need a new logo. It looks super sucky in the yellow pages or on their website. So you just do it, and then you send it to them and say, hey, if you want to use this, you can pay me. I don't think that that's good for our industry either. And, I think even being a member of AIGA, you are signing that you're not going to do that kind of work. And I think it's really important. Cold calling is hard as it is. So I wouldn't cold call. I would make sure I knew something about them, and maybe it was in an area that I had some expertise in, and I thought I could help them. And just because you're in one city doesn't mean you can't help other people in other cities that are doing the same thing. So spec work, thank you. I knew it was constantly, not comp work. Thanks, Amy. Oh yeah, so line items, stock photo searching, sourcing. I actually have, if you don't have it stuff typed in, I'm gonna charge you a fee, because Lord knows I do not wanna have to type it in, but I am not gonna do that for free. And I am not your proofer. You know, I'm expecting things, you have to be very clear on what your expectations are of what they're providing to you. And if they need help searching for images, then I write that, I'll do the search, and then they can pay it. Or whatever. Like, I think those are really good. So Roseanne says, education is so true. Most clients are thrilled to feel a part of the process. And I agree. I think they really they feel more ownership as a part of it, but it can lead to frustration for you. And so you need to make sure that those are not ones that you're giving away, or not ones that you are discounting so much, especially if they really want to be part of that process, because it takes more time on your end to do that. Well, we've gone a little over than 20 minutes. I think we've had a good, transcription's another good one. Yep. That I do think you can use Fiverr for me and my little bit Southern drawl. I think getting things transcribed, I think, is something that you could use one of those $5 things for, possibly. Again, you're not expecting it to be super perfect and proofed, so you still have to do that. But I've had clients say, oh, well, can you write this for me? And I'm not a writer, so I have a copywriter that I use. And I just include that in my fee. If I need a programmer, then, or if I need somebody to write a certain kind of form or code, then I have to add that in. And I'm not going to discount them, you know? So I'm going to say, well, if we're going to do this, this is what it's cost. And I have a price sheet by my desk at my home office. I think that that's a good thing for you to do. Also, you should raise your prices every couple of years, even if it's just $5 for your regular rate that you're kind of basing everything off of. I think it's important so that people don't think, oh, you were, $40, $45 back in 2003, then you're like $50 now. Like, think about when your hairdresser goes up on price, like that's when you should go up. If she goes up in every 2 years, then you should go up every 2 years. And boys, like my husband doesn't have any hair, so he's probably not thinking that. So any kind of service like that, where that's always like my, oh, she goes up, so I go up. So you might need to find like your, I don't know, massage therapist when they go up on their price. I always think, and if they're not, then you probably need to tip them more. But I go through a bunch, and I wish I had my sheet of all the ones that are in the course, and maybe that'll be something I give away just as you can go through the thing on your own, but I'm not going to give you the report because it takes a ton. $1,500 an hour is probably a little much, but it depends. If you have the people coming in and you have the expertise and the experience behind it. I know people that have charged $1,000 an hour for consultation work. No problem. I know somebody who said, it was $10,000 for every, for 10 hours, or for $10,000 for 2 hours. It seems really astronomical, but if you're packed out and you can't get all your work done and you can't have fun, then you need to raise your rate, because yes, some of those people who can't pay that are going to drop out. But it's also, if there's an orange at the store and it's $5 for that one orange, and then there's, 10 for $5, you think something must be better about that orange that's $5, just a single orange. And you want to be that. You want to be that. Now, you have to work up to that point, I think. It's not like you come out of the gate. That's being really cocky and not something I would suggest. But you want to make sure that you become that. You are working towards being that orange that everybody's going to. So yeah, in this one talk, Jason's gone from $750 to $1,500. I think if you've been in the business, depending on your location, and I also do work like outside of my area, I definitely suggest that, put your stuff out there, do something for a client in another city, another bigger city, and then they hear about it and they go, stuff like that. I always try to put stuff on the bottom of somebody's web page as well. Or if I've done something for free, I try to get my logo on their site or something. But anyway, that's kind of how it goes. From back in 03, I was $40, and and now I'm $100 an hour, between 100 and 125. So, I mean, and I'm in a pretty small town. So granted, I know some of my clients are getting a really good deal, like the ones in California are probably getting a really good deal, but that's good. I mean, I give them good customer service. Anyway, so I'm going to have to go. You guys are going. Nobody wanted to be on, and I wish the poll had worked, but oh well, I'll do that next time. Thanks for coming to Rapid Recharge, and I'm sorry it wasn't as rapid as I had hoped. But have a great week. Oh, and next week we're off, but the week after that we have Gage Mitchell, who I met at Amy's AIGA Raleigh. He was awesome. Talked about living and working, doing your passion. So I'm real excited. That'll be July 8th. So I will see y'all on July 8th with Gage Mitchell. Thanks for coming, and I hope I answered most of your questions.